episode of Sunday at Mike's. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Let me make my adjustments here. I think we're all good. How's everybody doing out there? I want to thank you guys so much for taking the time. Oh, Denro in the house, all the way from Athens, Georgia. How's the weather there doing? It's a hot one here. Finally. So I hope the weather is fair to Midland. That's more Midwest. I hope the weather's good there. Not bad. Frederick Rogers in the house. Hot. Sounds about like here. Ben Allmark in the house. Greeting, folks. Ben in the house. Yeah, dinner, man. It's weird. I miss the warm weather. Everybody's getting it but me. But we got a little bit this weekend. Michael Watson in the house. Welcome. While I wait for a few more people to show up into the live stream, I will talk about things that have been going on here in the Upstairs to the Right Music Studio this week. I'd like to show you guys something. This is actually something to show. It seems like nothing, but it is. So this is the part from Japan. So this is fresh off the airplane. I picked it up off my friend who brought it just back from Tokyo. This is that pick guard that I literally took a week trying to find. And when I tracked it down, I bought the last one, the last pick guard available in Japan. I'm not kidding. When I say Japan, I mean from Okinawa all the way up to Hokkaido. And for the foreseeable future, the guy said at the shop to my friend who picked it up, that they can't see when they're going to get more of those in, as well as these knobs as well. I needed a set of knobs to go with this. From the same company, Montreux, original parts. These are pretty good parts. You know, I always talk about the quality of parts, and whenever I get stuff like this, and I'm really reminded what quality is, because if I go for something like this, for example, this pick guard, which is your standard Chinese, Alibaba, Temu type thing, versus the quality of this pick guard, even, taking the pickups out and everything, just the quality of these two different animals altogether. Even with the knobs, it's really hard to see, but just focus in on the fonts on those knobs, and how this is more correct. And this is actually a little it's bleeding a little bit. It's not very good quality. Small things like that make a big difference when it comes to guitar parts. And certainly for guys in Japan who are trying to secure this stuff, the good stuff. Hey, welcome, Maddie Two Hats in the house. How you doing? Um, Trying to reach, get quality stuff like this, which I do believe, yeah, not exactly seeing where this is produced. I also got a Fender Bridge part also, but that was produced in Taiwan. So I assume that possibly maybe these are as well. But regardless, there's a shortage of parts like these in Japan. I got the last two. These are literally the last two that were available. So if you're a Japanese guy and you're looking for these, they are not only long gone, they're now halfway across the world, which is not good, because I'm sure there's a lot of cats out there who are trying to do build jobs, reconstruction jobs, and things like that. And they're going to be hard pressed to find this. The reason I wanted this particular one, don't get me wrong, there's pick guards there, but this is an 8-hole pick guard. And these are the pick guards that you would find on early Greco guitars from the 70s. As you know, coming up this week, I have a shipment coming in, and one of them is a 70s Greco guitar. I'm going to have to do some work on it. When I do the unboxing video on that, you'll see what I mean. One of the things that needs to be replaced is the pick guard and the knobs and the trim system. So those are the parts that I got from Japan, because again, I wanted to restore the guitar. The XL pickups in it are fine. The wiring, well, we'll leave that up to Fern to suss out. The rest of it, I'm going to do the fret dressing and the cleanup work and things like that. But Anyway, finding the parts for that, I got lucky. I got lucky. I got like I could have been a day late and a dollar short, but as it ended up, I got the last one. So I will be able to do that reconstruction. I consider this to be a true rebuild because, again, this is actually a three position switch, also pick guard. That's also period correct to that guitar as well. It's a three position switch. So a lot of things there. Just really shocking to me, though. However, the lack of parts, available parts like this in Japan. Again, like I said, there used to be a time when it was a gold mine. I am planning on going to Japan in October myself, physically. So that's actually not that far away. And I am going to swoop up as many parts as I can. You know, I'm getting to be kind of the parts guy. I got a lot of parts, which is good for the type of work that I do and want to restore things before I move them on to the next person, and just for my own knowledge and education as well. But if there's going to be a parts shortage of stuff like that on Japanese models, then I need to address that. And that's just weird. I never thought there would be a day when that would happen. And, speaking of, how many people we got here? Oh, we got 7 people, 2 upvotes there. Hit the likes, guys, if you don't mind. Again, I want to thank everybody for spending your time here with me. Time is a valuable thing. You could certainly be spending your time elsewhere, but you have chosen to bless me with a little bit of yours, and I do greatly appreciate it. Uh, Before I get started here, if you're going to watch this live or if you're going to watch this in the rerun, just a reminder out there, guys, I am trying to hit 5,000 subscribers on this channel. We're halfway through the year. We're halfway to that goal. I really think that we can do it. So if you're new to this and you're catching this and you like what you hear, uh, why don't you join the community? As you can see, we've got a bunch of great guys here all the time, and I'm so blessed to have them and so happy to have these friends in this community. I think you should join in as well if you feel like it. So please think about it. It doesn't seem tonight I'm drinking spa. I'm feeling a little fancy. When I lived in, because they don't have this, but spa doesn't exist in Japan or Singapore. And I used to really miss this. Now that I'm here, I can get it all the time. I barely touch it. Isn't that funny? Um, how, just depending upon, anyway. Doesn't seem like there's a week that doesn't go by as a matter of fact, a lot of these live stream discussions recently has been talking about the cracks in the music business infrastructure, whether it's closing of guitar companies like Fernandez, or if it's the closing of guitar distributors like Sam Ash, or tonight's discussion, the closure of the place where they actually made the music. Even that has not survived. So tonight I'm going to talk about the closing of the record plant. And I want to tie it in to those 3 other discussions that we've had in the past and point to an alarming trend. So that is tonight's discussion. I don't know if you guys had heard about that. It hurts because the record plant had 2 locations, Hollywood and also up in South Toledo. Now the South in San Francisco Bay Area. Now it's the South Toledo record plant location that I'm going to start tonight's discussion at, because that's the one that was the studio that I aspired to one day work in or work in its equivalent. You see, Prince's second, I told you I love Prince, the great admirer and critic of him, but out of love. His second album was recorded at the record plant in Sausalito. And I think his second album far outshone the first one, For You. And he really let his rock taste, especially with the song Bambi, come out. And I always liked the sound of that album. And I always aspired to work in a big studio. There's pictures, numerous pictures now you can see of him. For some reason, they're in black and white. I do believe they had color cameras back in the 70s, in the late 70s, early 80s. But for some reason, they're in black and white of him working in the record plant. And of course, in my era, in the late 80s, going into the 90s, 2000s, in Los Angeles, your aspiration really was, if you wanted to be in the business as a producer, was to cut your teeth in one of the big studios. And I made that dream come true. I was blessed enough, not just in LA, but in Japan as well, to be able to experience what it's like to be in a real recording studio. And also some of the pressures of being in a real recording studio. I remember I was doing my remixes for Motown, and every time that I knew, Reggie Andrews, who was my mentor, he's the guy who got me in. He's the reason that I got into those studios. So God rest his soul. Um, he said, every minute you spend in there, that's coming out of your money. So you better learn how to be quick in there. So not only did I have to learn how to work a big board, but also I had to do it quickly because I was under the pressure of a clock. Um, so I'm going to talk about that a little bit too. So, the end of an era, the closing of the record plant, and the changing landscape of the music industry. So, that's the title tonight's, the long title for tonight's discussion. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into the impact of the legendary record plant's closure after 55 years of shaping music history. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar, the record plant is an iconic recording studio that opened in 1969, so 2 years after I was born, in Hollywood. It has been home to countless hits. The one in LA is where the Eagles recorded the Hotel California album. And Fleetwood Mac's Rumors, I do believe, was also recorded there. Well, a lot of stuff. I mean, my God, I could sit here for the entirety of tonight's live stream and discuss the numerous major albums that were produced in these recording studios. You know, there are restrictions too. I'm gonna. I have notes here to keep me from digressing, but I will make digressions from now and then. From now and then, every now and then, to if I think it makes a point regarding the time constraints. Also, there was a constraint on tracks as well. Most of the big studios, when I started working for Babyface, that's when we had two Struders syncs. You had 48 track studio. But most of the big studios that I worked in were 24 track studios. And they were actually 22 because you needed one to lay down a sync and then you needed a buffer track. And then you made a decision, do I put my kick drum up here on track 22 or oh yeah, in that case 22, or do I put it on track one because of bleed over and things of that nature? You had to take those things into consideration as well. In the digital age, that's no longer the case. So these things were restrictive, but I think that those restrictions led to people making magic. The Beatles only had 4 tracks, and yet Sir George Martin was able to expand beyond that. And because of the constraints, it made them also innovate. things. The innovation of the 4-track recorder, which, by the way, came about from technology from Germany during the war that somehow ended up in the hands of our good friend Les Paul. Yeah, look that one up. Figure that little bit of, of of intrigue there. How did he end up with a German technology that he expanded upon and came up with what we know as the modern 4-track? Les Paul was something. He was something. But a lot of Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction album was recorded at the record plant. Um, but now it's closing its doors for good. So that sound, if you heard those albums and you said to yourself, "Hey, I want as a new signed artist, I want to experience that recording in that room that these albums were recorded, so I can achieve this sound for my album." Those days are over. It's not going to happen again because once they close those doors, they tear all that stuff down. It's over. It's over. So it really, from a sonic standpoint, it's really, really a loss. Also, now on the historical impacts of this, the record plant wasn't just a studio; it was a creative haven. It had luxurious amenities like hot tubs. Now, I had to be honest, I ain't getting in a hot tub after Fleetwood Mac's been in it. I gotta tell you, nah, not unless I'm in a full, scuba suit, snorkel and mask included. Nah, nah, nah. I'm sure as hell ain't getting into it after Guns N' Roses. Nobody. But they had it. Mirrored ceilings. Okay, and it's state of the art at that time recording technology. It was designed to inspire artists, and like I said, these albums that were created, they really defined generations. Certainly, Appetite for Destruction is as important of a rock album as Van Halen one from a sonic standpoint. And again, think of it in those terms. I'm a producer and an engineer, and I that part as well as being an artist, but uh, that side of me really is looking at this from a sonic loss. So just to put it in those terms. Now, why is this happening? I think we all pretty much will know why this is happening. I think we know why this is going on. I really hate these new tops over here in Europe that they put on pet bottles now. You can't, screw it off and screw it back on. It's attached. It really makes drinking, a real pain in the butt. And you can rip them off anyway. So, it's just another unnecessary law that went into effect that does nothing. Anyway, that's a bad digression. Let me move on. The shift in the music industry, advancements in recording technology. So, why is this happening? The short answer is technology. Recording technology has advanced tremendously. Today, you can achieve high quality recordings at home with just a laptop and some software. Um, yeah, I agree. I think that a hybrid studio where you've got the laptop with some hardware is really where some of your better modern records are being how they're being produced. Ben Allmark. So that's the studio. Axel laid the pipe to Steven's girlfriend in the recording booth during Rocket Queen. Yeah, now you know why they needed the mirrors on the ceiling. So she could watch his pale ass go up and down while he was on top of her. Yeah, boy. Yeah, memories, boy. Memories. Run the corners of my mind. Now, one of the engineers there, Gary Meyerberg, said that there's no money in recording music in the recording music business anymore. Instead of spending 2,000 a day at a big studio, artists can now invest in a laptop and a sample library, and the need for big recording spaces has diminished. This is so true. Um, but again, like I said, the hybrid studios that you were seeing, the smaller hybrid studios, especially that popped up in the mid 2015s on in Nashville and LA, the ones that I've seen, certainly on YouTube, you can see people showing them off touring those. To be frank with you, uh, they're from an engineering standpoint, they're a wet dream. Some of them are really nice, and the ones that have decent acoustic treatments done uh, beat the pants off of this. And an artist who gets an advance would be wiser to spend that money not in a recording studio, but investing in the equipment and putting it together themselves. And that's just the truth of the matter. That was happening back in my day. Again, South Central unit, where Jock and I learned our skills at through Reggie Andrews. We had a 48 track Mackie board. We had 24 tracks of ADAT. Eventually, we got a computer running an early version of whatever, I forget what it's called. I use Studio One, so everything else I forget about. But anyway, um, this was the beginning of and it was literally in one of Reggie owned a series of condo units, and he converted one of the condo units into a recording studio. And this was 1992, 93. You know, so it's not exactly something that's new to now, but technology has made it so that it just made it so recording spaces are just obsolete in some ways. Another factor is the economic shift within the music industry. This is a big one. Recording labels have drastically reduced their budgets over the years, which has led artists to find more cost effective ways to produce music. It's weird. These artists, they're paying and getting ripped off at the same percentages that they were before, but even that, that carrot of the big budget to record the album, which a lot of the artists that I knew this guy named Gilo. He got a deal with LaFace, and most of that money he had used to rent an apartment and get his wife and baby mom. I'm sorry, his baby mama and his kids over to live, and they were living off that money and using it to record an album in some of the smaller B studios we had at Yab Young and Brandon's Way. And those days are gone. He couldn't do that anymore. Even and even that care, which of course he has to pay this back. It's just a loan, but at least it allowed him to be an artist. These guys got to cut their albums at night and go off to work at Taco Bell during the day, and that's if they can get that Taco Bell gig. And that is just the reality of it. These budgets cutting down in the this cut down of budgets from the record labels, which is their own fault. They subscribe to this streaming model, which cut out their revenue coming from CDs, albums, you know, hard media that they profited from greatly. They, they participated in their own demise. And this demise, of course, as you can see, has ripple effects. Has ripple effects with the recording studios like the record plant to make the music. It makes a ripple out there with the retailers like Sam Ash. Because if if these guys don't need equipment, even for the studio rental stuff, SIR type stuff, that's going to affect them. Then and there's not a lot of cats playing. I mean, the ripple effects again, you know, they carry through. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Artist adaptations. Now, there's a producer named Phineas who works with his sister. You may have heard of her. Her name is Billie Eilish, and they are well known for cutting their albums, and that won a Grammy, or numerous Grammys. Not at the record plant, no, in their room, much just like this, with a setup very similar to my own, very similar to mine. And I found a quote where he spoke about the benefits of a home studio. To him, he mentioned the flexibility and comfort it provides, which fosters creativity in ways that traditional studios might not. Um, Now, I talked in the beginning about that time pressure. Boy, unless you lived it, you really wouldn't understand that. But that was my first lesson. Reggie said, "Don't go in there dragging tail." Those were his exact words. Don't drag your tail in there because every minute you're paying for. It's coming out of your end. Wow. Okay. And so, of course, we found ways to cut that down. Well, let's buy the tape and go to a guy who actually has a 24 track machine in his house, and let's lay down the Simpy there. That'll save time because laying down Simpy takes time. So at least that's down. So then I can take that tape to the main studio that I'm going to be doing the remix at, and so that we can get going immediately. I don't have to wait while he syncs up the tape. So those are the type of things. And again, if you didn't live during those times, what I just said to you would mean nothing because none of that is necessary anymore. But that pressure of time created those kind of secondary, like the guy who I had to pay him to go to his house to lay down he was making money. That's gone. That's long gone. And all the auxiliary things that come from this. See, it's not just, this is symptomatic of the trickle down. If you really get into it, shows the real, not just the cracks in the foundation, but the real rot. And when you see YouTube videos that have titles like "The music business is over," "The music industry is over," I used to think of those as kind of clickbaity, but the reality is that they're actually not. They're more spot on than you would think. And I know I'm weird. If I had a choice, if I could cut an album in one of the big studios, if I could do the last Asanoki album, for example, as opposed to cutting it in my studio in Singapore, which was a lot bigger than this. You guys can see multiple videos of that, how big that room was. I had a drum set, for God's sake. Um, and here, or going to a record plant, I'm still old fashioned. I would like to go to the record plant, you know. But Phineas' generation, along with his sister Billy, they don't see it that way. They don't want to feel that time constraint. They don't want to feel that. They feel that that rushes the creative process. I think sometimes that pressure you can produce something really good. The song "Happy" by Pharrell Williams, he was given 10 days, I think, to write that entire soundtrack album for Minions that song came from. And the pressure for that was incredible. But out of that came that song "Happy," which, quite frankly, is his best song. One of the best things he's ever done. Um, and so the pressure of that sometimes, so I could argue it on both sides. I really could argue both sides. Um, Reflections on the future outlook of the studios like this. The closing of the record plant really marks the end of an era. But it also reflects a broader trend in the music industry. Home recording is here to stay, and it's democratizing music production. Now, what does that mean? Well, it would not be without fairness to point out that the big recording studios during my time, when I was at my peak, were kind of in their way gatekeepers. Most of them were booked out to the major labels, And if a major artist came in, and even if you booked some time, you were going to get bumped. There was a priority there. If you could get in at all, and by the way, you'd have to pay the money. And this is going to be a digression, but just to show you why one of the reasons why rap came up is because most of the guys who had the money to book the big studios that weren't tied into a label were drug dealers and illegal activities. They had the cash flow. Plus, it was a way of washing it too. So that's why a lot of labels in the rap uh, period came up. You needed the money at that time. Of course, again, now with the democratization of music production, that's out. That's no longer necessary. But that is one of the core tenets as to why rap came up, because these guys could afford to pay that money for the big studios. I, as a kid, $20 an hour for a 16-track studio in my teen years was where I got started, and that was a lot, you know. And I had, again, time pressure. I had $100, and believe me, you weren't going to get. And I went in there prepared. I want to play this, and my friend Drake, I want you to play this, and we had an engineer, so I didn't have to do that, thank God. But again, the time constraints there. But there was a gatekeeper. There was money, and it was a 16-track studio. And I still have those, man. I still have those tapes, by the way. My mother, God bless her, she still kept all those reels. But you know, y- it has democratized music in the sense that they're no longer the gatekeepers. However, what it's done is created a flood of mediocrity as well. Because also, to get signed to a label back in the day, you did have to have a certain level of ability, musical ability and talent. Of course, that's what they wanted because they could make money off of that. Hey, we've got the newest, hottest, greatest singer, and you're like, wow, that really is the greatest, hottest singer or guitar player, or whatever. The mediocrity really took hold when the digital era kicked in, and the overflooding of the streaming platforms and the demonetization of music as a result of that. While the traditional big studio model may be outdated, there's still a place for the specialized recording environment. Um, on the plus side, as Maddie Two Hats would remind me to say, you're not going to squeeze the London Philharmonic into your bedroom. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Last weekend, I went to go up here to the concert, Gabral, the concert hall, literally a 15-minute walk from here from me, to go see Indiana Jones with orchestra. And they had the movie Indiana Jones and Lost Ark. So the first Indiana Jones, they had the movie on the screen, big screen, nice big digital screen. Um, uh, they had taken the soundtrack out, and instead they had a 40-piece orchestra there playing the music in time with the entire movie, and it was amazing. And you're not going to squeeze a group like that into a home bedroom. So the spaces and halls that cater towards, or recording places that cater towards that kind of recording, are still going to go on. However, the budgets for those are getting cut as well. Um, so how long that will hold out, I don't know. But there is something there because there's always going to be a need to record that classical type of music, and you're not going to do it in a home bedroom. A four-piece ensemble, no problem. Sure, I could pull that off, but an orchestra, no. I record Jock and I told you we got a chance to record an R&B group at Capitol Records, and we got the chance to. The engineer was kind enough to let us go into the big room where they score movies, and I was amazed of the, just the size of the room, the board. Uh, it was an amazing sight to behold, and you're just not going to get that outside of that kind of environment. So on the plus side, I think that there is a future for recording studios that lean towards that. Jazz groups, rock groups who want to record live, so they don't want to record. Oh, the drummer cuts his part, and then the bassist does their part, and then they want to record the tracks live, as they cut them like they used to. So there may be something there, but that's just getting less and less. Just the reality of it. So basically, in summary, to sum up, the closure of the record plant is a significant moment in music history. It would pass with all the other stuff that's going on out there. It would pass by you. It go right by. Oh, the record plant closed. Oh, I didn't know that. Well, the Sausalito one closed in 2008. So it's been a long time since that. The one that Prince cut his stuff at, that one's long gone. It's gone. That was still during his lifetime, actually. So it didn't even last Prince's because he died in 2016. That was done in 2008. But even by that point, what did Prince do? Prince had Paisley Park. He had his own complex. You go upstairs. Well, anyway, I won't get into that. But he had his own complex. And so a major artist like him, didn't see any value in going in the vocal booth where Axl Rose had nutted up. Now that I think about it, I don't. Man, they had to sanitize that room with like 50 tons of Lysol. Just back the truck up and just pour it in there and let it just soak through everything, and then maybe I would go in there. Maybe. So I kind of understand Prince's point. Matty Two Hats. Brendan O'Brien, the huge producer from the 90s, said recently that he hardly records live drums anymore. Yeah. Yeah. Um, on the Yasunoki first album, I played a lot of live drums. A lot more than I did on the second album. Some of it because I had the drums room, but when I moved to here, some of those tracks I had to use what do you call it, like easy drummer type things, and then I would supplement on top of that with a live snare or whatever, hi-hats. But I found that to be so much easier than recording a full drum set. Like Funky Good Time, that's me just playing on the drums, just kidding the licks, and then sometimes I put fills on top of that. Whereas Mr. Sun is a combination of live drums and samples. So, and quite frankly, I think that both of them are excellent. So yeah, I can dig that. Even myself, like I said, I've moved away from that. I don't like playing drums anymore anyway. It's the one instrument that I give up on. I haven't played a lot of keyboards lately. I've been really concentrating on playing guitar a lot more because I just dig it as an instrument and I can ride with it. But drums is my least, it always has been my least favorite instrument. So I can understand that. And recording it is a pain in the ass. Miking up drum set, all the things that you have to do. Why even bother? So it highlights the rapid technical advancements and economic changes reshaping the music industry. It's just, again, like I said, it's part of a three-tier milk stool. Record plant where they make the records closes. Sam Ash where they make the instruments that people play in the record plant is closed up, and anyway, a lot of cracks, a lot of different things I've been talking about recently. And again, that trickle down effect and how it touches, like I said, the guy who had the Streeter tape machine, and it was in Inglewood too. It was in the hood. He was. We went down to his house, this dude's house in the hood. And Jock was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't worry. He's gonna put the Simpy down. He's gonna charge you $100, and you'll be done." I said, "Okay," or $50, and you'll be done. I said, "Okay, cool." Go down to his house. Really? And go into his bedroom, and there he had 24-track tape, and he put the Simpy down on it. And yeah, yeah, just to save time. But a guy like that, once those studios went out, once the digital age came in, nobody was good. That Simpy, that tape machine is an expensive paperweight, more or less. Matty Two Hats. I do think once Logic Drummer came in, that was that really. Yeah, I agree. Um, uh, you know, you still have to shift because if not, it'll sound mechanical. So you have to, and you can't do an algorithmic shift, and you have to kind of go in by hand and shift notes and say, okay, let's put this a little bit behind it, or let's rush this a little bit above, just to give it a feel. That's the one thing that I don't like is that it does take a little bit of time in putting it together so it has a feel to it. But once it's locked in, nobody would know the difference. Nobody would know the difference. Kind of a little bit. I mean, again, I mentioned those two songs. If you have my albums, you can listen to them and you can hear what I mean, the difference between a live drum versus a hybrid kind of thing. They both sound great, but you can kind of, once I pointed it out to you, maybe you'll see what I mean by that. Yep, but you can humanize it or push and pull. Yeah, yeah, there's a lot, but that's the job of producer to do those things. And you know, it's about understanding feel too. You have to know how a drummer plays or be a drummer yourself or know how to play. I'm not a drummer, but I know how to play drums. But you'd have to know that yourself in order to get that because. But again, the technology made it possible so that the drummer became obsolete. You know, I've never heard until the AI songs recently. I've never heard good samples of like keyboard like guitars. I've never have. I've never heard because the minute I hear it, it automatically just sounds like there's just that doesn't sound like real guitar. And so there's some things until like I said recently, even those AI songs, there's a little bit there, but it's a hell of a lot better, interesting enough than a lot of the guitar sample stuff. So some things they can't fake, some things they cannot replicate, but drums, yeah. So while it's the end of the era for one of the most iconic studios, it's also a testament to the resilience and ability of music creators to endure and go on despite these changes. However, again, I can't put a bow on. I can't put paint a rosy picture. That I can't put a nice ribbon on this one because there's none to be had. Um, there is a democratization of music recording through technology, but it has led to again vast amounts of mediocrity and and fraud. We talked about that when we talked about Spotify and their one producer who's responsible for 30% of their revenue who works for them. But these cracks, because of that kind of shenanigans, this kind of shift where the money shifted to. That money that Spotify is making is the money, it doesn't come out of nowhere. It had to come from somewhere. If you look at the revenue that Spotify is taking in, that's the money that used to be the revenue for CDs, albums, tapes, cassette tapes, 8 tracks, if you're old enough. Remember 8 tracks? I had an 8-track player in my car. Yeah, buddy. When I first started driving, I had an 8-track And what 8 track did I have? I had Star Trek: The Motion Picture, the first Star Trek from '79. I had the soundtrack, and I had AC/DC Back in Black. No, not lying, not lying. I had in the Rambler because I had my a hand me down from my brother's car. I had a Rambler from 66, 67. Yeah. So if you're old enough, you know what I'm talking about. Matty Two had said he had an 8 track as well, but the technology changed to cassettes. When I was working in the recording studios, when I had an idea, we were always making cassettes. And then that turned to MD, and then that turned to hard disk. You know. And in each step of the way, something was lost, in my opinion. Some things were gained, certainly, but certainly that revenue that uh, ordinarily would have gone into the CDs and albums, was therefore would have gone into the hands of the artist, has gone the way of the dodo. Now that revenue has been shifted over in this model over to Spotify. They two heads. Here's the problem I face as a songwriter, though. Okay, lay it on me. It still costs money to make music, and now return is almost zero. It's hard to keep going. Well, yeah, Maddie. Again, I'm there with you. My ability to write music has not diminished. The other day, somebody said something to me, and it automatically triggered. I reached for the Strat because it was nearest to me, and I started mapping out the chords, and I wrote the entire song in about 10 minutes. It's called "Under Your Skin," and it's a beautiful song that I would love to record one of these days if you know if I see fit. It may be, like I said, I'm going to take some of my previous stuff that you guys aren't familiar with and come up with a third rock album. And I may record one or two new songs for that and put that out. So I have 3 albums out on Bandcamp. But I would record it for something like that, I was thinking. But there's no monetary inclination, certainly there. Uh, uh, it has to be out of just a desire to do it. I can, therefore I will. And anything outside of that, you just have to be thankful for. Again, if I get $15, I'm happy. If I got 15,000, happy. Either way, I am happy as long as it's out there because it's doing no good bumping in between here and here. I need to get it out there. But my Uncle Carlton, Blues Hall of Famer, Matty, said the same thing to me a few weeks ago about his recording. He's in his 80s. He still wants to record, but he says he doesn't even want to play live because there's no value there financially anymore. Again, the trickle down, the live playing, I didn't even touch on that. You know, in order to get a record contract like Van Halen did, they had to play all the live clubs between Santa Rosa and Pasadena, if you're familiar with the West Coast, and everything in between. In order to get Ted Templeman's attention, in order for him to sign them up. And then when they did go in the recording studio to work on that Van Halen 1 album, all they were doing was just playing the set that they had been playing for quite a while at that point. And that's why that album was recorded very quickly too, super quick. If you don't have the place to record that, if the end point of that, then all the steps preceding to that are going to fall away, which is why the closing of the record plant also is symbolic of the closing of the live clubs as well, and the lack of places where people can record. You have to go back to the mentality of you do arts for art's sake. You paint a picture, you paint a painting, and Van Gogh, he wasn't, you know, he painted because he had to. He had to get it out. He had to pump it out. Even in his worst episodes of psychosis, he had to do his work. And he died a very poor man. And now his pictures are here 10 minutes here down the street with security guards around them. You can't even get within 3 feet of them without somebody looking at you crossways. The artist will always suffer. Matty Two Hats. Yep, and sorry to hog the chat. No, 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 not at all. I'm glad you're rounding this conversation out with good points. But we just lost a big original venue in Brisbane. It had been going on 40 years and it's now gone. I played there 15 times. Because they're connected. The closing, it's the butterfly effect. The record plant closes, not even that. It's even more direct. You only have to be halfway across the world. Well, in this case, it is. The record plant closes, and everything else that are auxiliary to that also goes away. The catering service. The poor guy who had to clean out the hot tub. That guy used to have work every day. It was, yeah, man, we need you to come down here. Yeah, Axel was in here last night in the hot tub. Come down with the scooper, Lysol, and you may even need the blowtorch. But anyway, bring all that shit. He's out of a job. He can retire on the work that he used to be able to get. But all the auxiliary jobs and all the I'm joking, but I'm making a point here too. There's a lot of cats out there who are eating off of that. Hot tub guy in a hazmat suit, Maddie says. Yeah, you need two. I'm serious, man. I want to record at the record plant, but if they say, "Oh, we got a hot tub in there in the back," I'd be like, "No, thanks. I'm good. Ugh, I'm good." That's funny stuff, but that's all gone. That's all tales of history now. And you can't even go stand in that room and look at the hot tub itself anymore because that's about to get boxed up and thrown in the waste dump of history. So you don't even have the option of not going into that tub anymore, or go in or go out. That option has now been taken away. It's moot. You know. So yeah, another exciting topic tonight. More great news. I don't know what to say, guys. I bring this stuff up every week. Like I said, there's something new. I read quite regularly the trades, and this came up, and I was like, "Wow, I've got a subject to talk about for Sunday night." But it's just a long trail of subjects where I'm talking about where things are just falling apart. For someone from my generation, from my age, from my experience, I cannot tell you the magic of being in a real recording studio. The darkness, because there's no windows. I love that, especially at night, because that's when I worked. The mood of those places, the fun times, that could be had there. Um, the things that I learned, things that I saw, the way artists really were, you know, the learning, silence, keeping quiet about things. All of those things have shifted over to a new generation who has a different viewpoint on those things. And maybe, Billie Eilish and her brother are seriously working. Maybe they're not throwing parties downstairs in the living room. Uh, they certainly aren't throwing the kind of parties that used to be thrown in those, and drugs and chicks and guns in some of the rougher places that I went into. I went to one session when I was like, you know what? I think I'm out of here. There's too many brothers with packing too much heat in here to make me even remotely comfortable. But again, these were early stages of rap in R&B. And where was the money coming from? Well, guys who usually packed heat. But those days are gone as well. All of that stuff. Fun times. And I know it sounds crazy and it sounds dangerous and it sounds like insane, but it was fun times. It was the environment that fueled that kind of music. And just like in a audio recording, chaos, something, a reflection over here, something you didn't hear but is picking up in the recording here, something like that that makes a recording actually sound better. you know those kind of things are no longer going to be there anymore, because you're in these home environments where things are very controlled, even more control. You don't have as many wild cards, unless, like me, you've got windows here, and this is the only time of night that I could do vocals. When I did my vocals for that album, this is the time of night that I did it, because you can't hear it. I'm well up off the ground, but you can still hear traffic, and that picks up. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about other things, like the recording "We Are the World," and there's a jangling sound, and they're like, "We can't. Where is this jangling sound?" And they're like checking everything. Well, it turns out it was the jewelry that Cyndi Lauper was wearing. She had so much jangle jewelry that it was bangles and whatnot. It was jangling, and that's what it was. But that's in the recording. There's stuff like that you're just not going to replicate anymore in small home room. Imagine recording "We Are the World" here in my room here. It wouldn't work. So the days of those kind of projects are going to fall off as well. Something to think about, Guy. Mad Two Hat says, "My heart sinks a little." But you're right. It's back to creating art for art's sake. It's art for it really is. It's at this point you do it's art for art's sake. And if you have the ability to do, so many people out there, oh, I'm going to write an album, they never do. Oh, I'm going to take up guitar or keyboard, they never do. Oh, I'm going to become a singer, they never do. But some people do. And the obviously from tonight's conversation, the ability to do so has never been more in the hands of the common person than ever before. Certainly not during the time that I was growing up. But again, this leads to a plethora of stuff out there, and you really cannot look at it from a financial viewpoint. You have to look at it from an artistic standpoint, and then try to market it as best as you can. But at least you did it. That's more than most, you know. So, Stephen, man, I am so glad you showed up. But you're always welcome. I was about to wrap up, but I'm glad you made it. I hope you will go back in the rerun and catch what we talked about tonight. It was an interesting discussion. But yeah, guys, that's kind of where we're at with that. And again, that ties in weirdly enough to how I opened up tonight talking about these parts that from Japan that it took me a week to source, because none of the retailers that I usually deal with had these. And I had to go to the source, to the company that supplies all the retailers. And literally, my friend said these were the last. You can still see the sticker hold. These are the last two that were available. They put them on hold for me, so that's why you see this hold sticker here. And But this was it. They didn't have any more. I said, "Well, go in the back and see if they've got another one." He said, "No, this is all they had." And the guy said they don't know when they're going to get more of this stuff in. And this, in a weird way, butterfly effect comes from the record plant closing. believe it or not, if you just follow through the chain of how something like that could be. A lot of implications there. Hey, check out the guitar parts. Yeah, I finally got them. They finally came in. I had to source these. The guitar that they're for, that big blue screen of death, of course, affected the shipping companies here. So they've got to sort through their backlog. They were supposed to send me notification on Friday, and of course, that's the day that things hit. So the guitar that these are for is in limbo. It's here. It's in the country, so that's good. But when I'm going to get it is a great question. I don't even know if they've sorted out their computer system. My brother, who's in IT, he works for Hewlett Packard. His company computer still isn't sorted out. He had to use his private computer to do his work. So yeah, the parts here, because somebody hand carried these on an airplane from Japan on Friday, ironically, or Saturday, ironically enough, to here, and I was able to get them. The guitars themselves, they're in customs limbo, and I'm hoping to get them this week. But because of that big IT mess up, there's going to be a delay of a few days on that. So you can't win. I had everything lined up where parts come, a few days, the guitar comes, start working on it, get it. I had a whole schedule laid out, but the plans of mice and men often go astray. So, but at least I have the parts and I have the last two of them. Again, these are the last two of these that existed in all of Japan. Nobody else has these, and I was able to get these last two pieces. Fortunately, so that when the guitar does show up, that I can restore it. But you can expect to see that in future content on this channel. If you haven't checked it out, I have a new video on my regular content showing you the rebuild of my pedal board. I got rid of my Metro Pedal Train 16 board that I have had for 10 years now, maybe eight, at least 8 years, maybe or so, almost nine, almost a decade, damn well, for a rock house pedal board. And you can see how that transformation of looks, because it is gorgeous. I love that pedal board. So check that out. If you haven't checked that video out, please take a look at that. That just came out yesterday. Love it. Love that rock house board. It's the cheapest, for you can get one with I got the one that doesn't have the bag, but for another $20 you can get one that has a carry bag. I already got a carry bag from the ironically enough from the pedal train, so I don't need another board bag. But 35, $30, whatever I paid for that, cheapest improvement, great, inexpensive, and I'm super happy. And if you haven't checked that video out, please do so. Yeah, I'm hoping my next video is going to be an unboxing. I hope it'll be by this Friday. I hope these things, but again, the blue screen of death seen around the world, it even affects that. So we shall see. But certainly, I appreciate you guys showing up tonight and listening to this discussion. Another one bites the dust, talking about the closure of the record plant and the implications of that out there in our business of music. I hope you tune in to the Wednesday Night Hump this Wednesday coming up. Again, I'm going to be going on holiday coming up here in August, first part of August, is in about 10 days or so, looking forward. So my content and my live streams may not be as regular, but I could use the break. But between now and then, you can expect me to pop up. So I appreciate you guys doing the same. Always appreciate you showing up to the live stream and supporting this channel. Thank you so much, as always, guys. Really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this. And until the next one, thank you, Ben. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Maddie. Thank you, Denro. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody. You guys take care, and I will talk to you soon. Bye bye.